Today we will be talking about how to model fraction multiplication. Be sure that you take very good notes so that you can look back on them later when you're doing your classwork and tonight when you're doing your homework. First, I want you to think back to when we learned how to multiply decimals. We did that using models as well. Look at the example that I've used below. We have 6/10 times 2. Using this example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/10 shaded on two different models, showing 6/10 times 2. To find my product, what I have to do is count up all of the shaded blocks that I have all together. When I count them up using decimals, I have 120 blocks shaded. That equals 1 2/10 or 1 20/100. Now I want you to look at fractions. Fractions are very similar, as they are the exact same thing as decimals, just in a different format. I have used an example that is the same as your decimal example. I showed 6/10 times 2. Notice how I say it the same way. The only difference is that it is in a fraction form. 6/10 times 2 as fractions looks exactly like 6/10 times 2 as decimals. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/10 shaded in on two different models. Therefore, my product for my fraction is the same. I have 120 blocks shaded, so my answer is 1 2/10 or 1 20/100. Again, this is the same answer. This shows you how decimals and fractions are exactly the same. 3/10 as a decimal equals 3/10 as a fraction. 1 4/10 as a decimal equals 1 4/10 as a fraction. And 1 43/100 as a decimal equals 1 43/100 as a fraction. You simply have to think about how you say it, and that is how you write it. Now let's talk about how do we model fraction multiplication. For today, we will not be using a hundreds grid. You will see what I'm talking about in one moment. Step 1, you must look at your whole number, and that is how many models you must draw. My example for this is 5 times 2/3. Using this example, how many models do I need to draw? Very good. I must draw 5 different models. I have done that below for you. I have drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 models. You simply have to draw a rectangular shape for this. I will give you a moment to draw yours on your notes. Let's move on. In step 2, you must look at the denominator of your fraction. The denominator tells you how many parts you divide each model into. This should be a review for you. Continuing with our example of 5 times 2/3, how many parts do I need to divide each model into? Very good. I must divide them into 3 parts. I have done that below for you. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 models that each have 3 parts to them. Please go ahead and divide your models. We will now move on to step 3. In step 3, we must move on from the denominator and look at our numerator. The numerator tells us how many parts must be shaded in each model. We are still using our same example, so when we look at our example of 5 times 2/3, how many parts must be shaded in each model? Very good. We must shade 2 parts in each model. I have done that below with my models. Each one has 2 parts shaded. Go ahead and shade your model to look like mine. Moving on to step 4, we must count how many parts are shaded in total. This means how many total shaded parts there are with all 5 models. When you count how many parts are shaded in our example, how many parts are shaded in total? Very good. We have 10 parts shaded. You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shaded parts. The total shaded parts stands for your numerator. This is something that you have been doing in fractions for a long time. When you are multiplying a fraction by a whole number, which we are because we are multiplying your fraction by 5, your denominator will stay the same. Therefore, with this example, our denominator will be a 3. In step 5, you finally are answering as a fraction. When we have 5 times 2/3, you remember that your total shaded parts was 10 and that your numerator remains the same. Therefore, our final product is 10/3. In this example, your product is an improper fraction. What do you think we need to do next? Think quietly to yourself. Excellent. Yes, we must make our improper fraction into a mixed number. We did this last week, so this should be a review for you. Remember that fractions can be seen as division, so with our example of 10/3, you will divide 10 by 3. When you divide 10 by 3, you have 3 equal groups with 1 left over. When we make this into fractions, we see that we have 3 1/3. Therefore, your final answer for 5 times 2/3 equals 3 1/3. Wow, we went through that pretty fast, didn't we? But I know that you took very good notes so that you can look back on them as you do your work. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.